tell us again who you are. And
Yeah, so I'm Jonathan Pilkington. I teach a bunch of places, including Perimeter College, the Lovett School, United Music Studios, Incoming, my condo in Buckhead, and, and maybe some other places coming up. And what else? I sing, and I'm a travel advisor.
Oh,
Which
nice.
I have
So
to.
can you explain a little bit more about these cruises that you do that are also somehow musical in nature?
should this be at the end?
Oh, I do. I would love to talk about it. Yeah.
I'm just curious as to how those two things go together.
Yeah.
At the
I
end
mean,
there.
should I would,
It's
now
up
or
to you.
later.
It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll tell you about. So I'm trying to organize a cruise that will involve singing and cruising, and the idea is that I'll just get a group of 10 or so interested people, and I found the cruise I want to go on, which is the Virgin company. Richard Branson, he started a cruise line for people who don't think they want to go on a cruise, because he listened to he didn't think he wanted to go on a cruise, so he created one he would want to go on. So there's no buffet, and there's no nickel and diming and all this stuff, and it's funky. It has like drag queens and a tattoo parlor on it.
Where does it go?
Yeah, so it leaves from Miami, this specific one, and it goes to Costa Maya, Mexico, and they created their own private island called Beach Club at Bimini in the Bahamas, and it looks amazing. So, I mean, the number one objective is to have fun, and for anyone who wants to sing better, even if, I mean, I would love for 70-year-old women to go and just take some lessons. And maybe like 2 lessons a week, and then there are yoga classes on the ship, and maybe some talks about wellness, and kind of a very informal master class, voice class thing. And just, yeah, my idea is like bettering yourself and the world by music and travel. So
Two things that can be combined.
yeah. So it'll be less than $2,000 for a 5-day thing. Yeah. So I would be more than happy to talk to you about it if you want to go. So then I was going to start this whole thing talking about myself, not to talk about myself, but to show like how important somatic voice work has become to me. So I went to a shorter college for my undergrad. I got a music education degree, and I got interested in voice pedagogy. At the same time, I was doing student teaching and hated student teaching. So then I was like, okay, I like teaching voice, and I'm interested in the anatomy and physiology and all that. So I found out that Westminster Choir College in New Jersey had one of the best, and at the time, one of the few programs to get a master's in voice pedagogy. So I went and did that. And I got my master's, studied with Scott McCoy, who most people who know anything about voice pedagogy know the name Scott McCoy, because he was kind of he was the president of NATS for a while, and he's written his own textbook and has a publishing company. So that happened. It was very scientific, and I learned all the stuff about the insides of the voice. And some methodology kind of classes. And then I lived in New York for a while, took some lessons. I was kind of burned out on the whole scientific voice pedagogy stuff, and studied with Claudia Catania, who's a lovely Italian lady, and just very nurturing, but a wonderful teacher. She sang at the Met and on Broadway, and I love both. Not that I do much musical theater, but I like it, and I like to be able to do it and teach it. So she was great, and the opposite of Scott McCoy. I had another teacher, blah, blah, blah. And then I came back to Georgia in 2009 and started teaching at Piedmont College, got my doctorate at UGA in voice performance, and I took a class in vocal health with Edie Hafner. Yeah, she's wonderful.
My supervisor.
Oh, okay.
At Every Voice, when I was at Every Voice.
Ah, okay.
I know her very well.
Yeah, yeah. It was the best class I took at UGA, and it had nothing to do with the music program. And then all the back up a few years, I was in the NATS intern program. So if you don't know what that is, it's for teachers who have been teaching for, I think, like 5 years or fewer, and you apply, it's a national thing, and then they select like, I don't know, 12 people to come, and there are 4 master teachers. And oddly, it happens a different place each year, and it was at my undergrad, Shorter College. So I went there, and Jeannie Lovetri was there as one of the master teachers, but she wasn't mine. But that just meant that I got to see her work a bit. And I liked what I saw, and I said, eventually I'd like to come to your program. So then, after I had started teaching at Piedmont, and after I had finished my DMA at UGA, I went. This is when, it was the last year it was offered at Shenandoah. So she started the program at Shenandoah that's now known as the new CCM whatever. And I think they're doing great things. But that was the program she started, and I went and did level 1. So the thing happens in 3 levels. And you can do 1 by itself, you can do 1 and 2, 1, 2, and 3 all at the same time, whatever. So I just wanted to taste. I was an adjunct professor at the time, didn't have any money, so I just did level 1. And it was amazing. So level 1 is just called basic application. And each level has a book that the only way to get it is by going to the program. She will not publish it. She doesn't want people to copy it, but I brought it so you can look at if you want to. So it's just the basics of the whole thing, which I'm going to talk about a little more later. So I left that, and I felt like I had this new understanding of voice that I had not had from all that other stuff I mentioned. Thinking about my, okay, so that happened. I was newly rejuvenated in my teaching at Piedmont. And then after I finished my I had already finished the DMA, but I went and did level 2 and 3 when she started doing her program at Baldwin Wallace Conservatory in Ohio. So that sent me to another level of just being all about this somatic voice work. Okay, so level 1 simply is basic application. Level 2 is called advanced application, and level 3 is repertoire, problem solving, and voice medicine. I meant to mention the initial reason I went was to learn how to teach people to sing music theater, or how to teach belting. And after the first time, I learned that it applied to everything. After basically a day, and there were people standing up like, "Why don't you include classical singing in this? Because it works for us." And basically, Jeannie, she does teach classical singers and does it very well, but she kind of just doesn't want to go there because NATS has not always been kind to her, or certain people from NATS, I should say. And people just don't get it because she's something different and they haven't been to her program. Also, I understand that some people are afraid of guru types. And I would be too. I'm very skeptical of people like that, but I drink the Kool-Aid and it's good.
So tell us the good.
Yeah, okay. So I was writing down just out of my head things that stick out to me as being big points that I remember before I looked at any notes or these books. So the one huge thing is registration. Obvious things, but somehow I didn't really get this big puzzle thing put together. You have your head voice, your chest voice, and mixed voice. And in most classical training, you don't really talk about it that way. It's head and chest, and then there's like full voice, and there's like, what am I doing when I'm on a high A? Is that my full voice? That's what people call it, but after I did this, I learned it's a mix. So this kind of leads to how I do any lesson, how I warm myself up every day. And this is kind of what she taught. You just do some simple exercises to warm up the chest voice. I'll do like and just in a narrow range where your chest voice is comfortable. And then I go to falsetto. And just get it warm. And that's the only thing that's simply a warm up, because you're warming up the thyroarytenoid muscle and you're warming up the cricothyroid. And then depending on myself or the student, I do something that encourages a mix, or just seeing where they are in mixing. So sometimes that can just be or there are all sorts of Lovetri type things like yeah, 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 or which I can show more specifically if we have time. But those things, like those three things, are sort of like, I see it as a doctor taking your blood pressure and your temperature, just to see where you are that day. So if the student's going, okay, we need to work on that. Or if they're really tight in their falsetto or head voice, we work on that. So it's always, I'm, assessing it every time. Which is kind of the next points. She has all these, there's a philosophy to this somatic voice work, such as accepting the student wherever they are on that day. And at the same time, being non-judgmental, just listening and observing what you're getting from the student, and assuming that the student is trying.
I like that one.
Yeah, I know. That was huge for me, because like, why aren't you getting this? Why aren't you trying? Like, come on. But I'm like, okay, they're probably trying. Occasionally there's one with a bad attitude, but so
Thanks, Lori. Shame.
so you do these things, and once you've gotten the voice warmed up, the idea is that so it's another big term Jeannie uses is functional voice training. So training the voice to function as the voice should function, as your individual or the student's individual voice should function. So any exercise you do should elicit a function. It should not be just to get a sound that you want, or whatever. Don't say, sing this like I'm singing it. Like, how about we try, if you hear a certain thing, like you feel like their tongue is tense, try an exercise like glah, 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 because the tongue is moving in the back and the front to do that. And okay, if that loosens up, if they're not able to do that because their tongue is so tense, then you try something else to loosen the tongue. So it's listening for things like that. And I'll talk about that later. So another thing that's big is waiting for the bus. So it's one of her big sayings. At the program, she'll work with people and say, okay, I'm just waiting for the bus now. So it's just this, sometimes the bus is there in 1 minute, and sometimes you have to wait 20 minutes for the bus. But you just patiently wait. So if the student is still breathy or whatever, and you're like, okay, I hear a little improvement. Like, okay, we're just waiting for the bus. It's kind of, the muscles are in there figuring out what to do. So that to me just brings this kind of patience instead of frustration. Like, okay, the throat just needs a little time, so I'm waiting for the bus. Okay. Neutral voice is a huge one for me. I mean, basically, neutral voice and a larynx is a larynx kind of go together. So whether a person wants to sing pop, rock, R&B, or opera, it's still just a larynx. And and especially with a young singer, you need to train their voice to just function well. Not to be operatic, or not to be a rock sound, but just a neutrally functioning sound. I can go many directions with that sound. And that kind of leads to the next thing, which is, I can't remember the exact quote, and I couldn't find it in my notes, but there are 3 things you can change, which are pitch, vowel, and volume. So the vowel can be anything from, can affect things like just like the tongue, or it can be the jaw, the lips, all those things are in the vowel world. Pitch is, I believe it's referring to if you're working in registration. If you want somebody to sing with more chest voice, or to strengthen their chest voice, you go lower. Also with vowel, certain vowels kind of encourage chest voice, like O and ah. Oo and E encourage head voice or falsetto. So if they're too chesty and you want them to sing in a lighter way, change the vowel and see if that helps. Okay, waiting for the bus. So also developing a language with your students by defining things like head voice, chest voice, and mixed voice. And also do it by constantly asking the students what they're experiencing. And not just saying, how does that feel? Which I do sometimes, especially if I know a student. But I had a 6th grade girl on Saturday who I was teaching, and this girl, and was like most, first time I asked her, she's like, I don't know. It's like, okay, well, we're gonna do it again. Pay attention to your face or your throat and see if you're experiencing anything there. So eventually she said, yeah, I'm kind of noticing it's up here. It's like, okay, good, that's a normal thing. Most singers want to feel their voice in this area. And if you're singing like this, then it's kind of down here, and that's not good, usually. So, so then I didn't tell her she needs to feel her voice up here. She realized that when it was better, it was up here. So that has been another thing that, if I were able to explain it better and had longer to do it, it has been huge in kind of making lessons more, just less stressful and draining, more energizing, because it's interaction and collaboration with the student instead of me teaching at them and trying to make them make sounds. And often I get information that I would not have suspected, and you learn a lot about them, how observant they are, and like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's great. Or they might say, oh, I'm feeling it in here, and it's not really good. Like, oh, well, I wouldn't have known that if you hadn't told me, so let's figure that out. Zigzagging is another thing, which is kind of simple, but if you're working up high and trying to get the students to sing a high G or something, don't stay there too long. You go back down to the chest voice, do something low for a minute, then you go back. So just don't wear out one end of the voice. so back to the first thing I said about registration. That y'all may know this, and I just didn't. But yeah.
Just assume we don't.
Yeah. So just the whole idea of mixed voice being so important, and how, and especially in musical theater, if you're singing something a little on the beltier side, you're in a chestier belt. If it's not quite belty, it's still a mix, but it's a headier mix. And it just applies so much to everything. And if you want to sing really quietly and a little airy on a middle C, then it's really heady down there, instead of being chesty and breathy, possibly. There's just more options and variations within that. Okay. So the changes for me personally that I have experienced, which I kind of already mentioned, teaching has become more energizing instead of draining, except for those certain students. I have one right now who I just can't always reach, and he just doesn't care. He's got one of the most amazing voices, but yeah. My singing on a good day is effortless. When I was at the program the second time, the first time at Baldwin Wallace, I got to work a lot with Jeannie on stage. She'll just bring certain people up. And she did all her tricks with me. I noticed, or she brought to my attention that I was tucking my chin like a lot of classical singers were taught to do. And I never knew how bad that was because it's shoving the larynx down and locking it in place. So a lot of times she'll even have people look up a little bit just to free the larynx. And that alone made a huge difference. She does things with corks under the tongue and corks in the mouth. It's weird, I can show you, I brought corks. Oh. It helps to release the tongue in ways that other things don't. And I was singing like a high E flat and had no idea. Yeah, so also I had one Skype lesson with Jeannie so far, and she noticed that she was like, do you realize you're doing this when you're singing? And I didn't, but I had been dealing with scoliosis, which was never dealt with earlier in my life. So if I don't try, I would be like this. I mean, I end up sitting like this sometimes. So she helped me to just bring awareness to that, to my head alignment, which was huge, and said I should go see an Iyengar yoga teacher who specializes in scoliosis. So I found one. It's of course I can't remember the name right now. By the Trader Joe's in Midtown, there's a great yoga studio there.
Stillwater.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, she was so good. So that it's at a time I can't really go, so I haven't been back, but it's really helpful. Okay, there are a few quotes that I took away. Be present, listen from a quiet place, and receive with your students. This is not as profound, but if you want a student to sing with more chest voice, or you just want them to be louder, or if they're too loud, if you're asking about their volume, just instead of saying you're too loud, sing quieter. On a scale of 1 to 10, how loud was that? And because they have their own scale. Yes.
I was just about to say, like, I know, like, in the other night, like, my chorus director, the GSO chorus director, has been talking about that with the choir.
Oh,
like,
really?
Scale of 1 to 10, how I want you to sing this
Oh.
to talk about dynamic.
Oh, wow, nice.
Yeah.
That's funny. I wonder if he knows Jeannie.
Talked about dynamic.
Oh, wow, nice.
Yeah.
That's funny. I wonder if he knows Jeannie. So then you can say, if they say, okay, I was a 6, and you want more, okay, how about a 9? And it works. Also about choral singing. There will be little sessions by other people in Jeannie's program, and one was about choral singing, or how you apply somatic voice work to choral singing. So the biggest thing I got from that was that if you want people to blend, it's a registration thing more than even matching vowels or all that stuff. So it happens in my church choir, although I love the people. If we're singing a D by middle C, and so-and-so doesn't know how to sing in a lighter mix, ah, if I'm and they're then we don't blend, even if we're saying exactly the same vowel. But if the director, I'm not saying my specific director because he's wonderful, if a director will say, okay, how about we experiment with a little more head voice in your sound, that could, I think, quickly solve it. And I've done it because I've directed some ensembles. So it's better to say, tell me how that was, or how did you experience that sound, rather than to tell them how to experience it, or to just say, how does it feel? Vocal health is always first. Freedom is the best way to get vocal health. So, always working to relieve tension or anything that is constricting and preventing the voice from being free. Another important thing is you need to be able to make the sounds that you are asking students to make. So I have not learned this. I didn't learn it in her program, how to teach like rock screaming, which you can do in a healthy way. Somebody knows how to teach it, and if I had a student who really wanted to study rock, maybe I would go learn it from that person. And I think you probably get more of that at the CCM thing at Shenandoah now, actually. Okay, are we okay with time? Is it, okay. I mean, I know it's 7:32.
We're a very relaxed group
Okay,
of people.
good. That's why I came with my shirt and tie.
Okay,
Good.
I'm not from USA,
Okay.
but my experience in USA, you don't get education for free. How much do you have education and how do you pay?
Okay, what was the last thing, your actual question?
How many semesters or hours had education?
For me?
High school, yes. And how did you pay that? It is funny question, but
Yeah, 4 years of undergrad. Somehow I had some nice scholarships, and didn't have many student loans, but I had some that I paid for with loans. Grad school, I still have about $50,000 in student loans. And my doctoral program was in-state, so here in Georgia, so it was very inexpensive, and I was able to just pay for it, with a little assistance from the college where I was teaching.
because when you were talking, I got feeling that you studied many years.
Yeah, you're right.
What do you feel about the cost of the elementary somatic voice work programs?
Oh, it's really reasonable. Yeah, it's, I
And
think,
how long?
yeah, good thinking. Each level is 3 days each, so 9 days total. And each level is $400 or $400 and something dollars. No. And it's intense. You get a lot for your money. And she makes a big point, like, why is this not standing room only? Because it's affordable. You get something I haven't mentioned is
I've heard her talk,
Interesting.
I've heard her talk, it's very, very good.
yeah, she's sassy and funny.
And she can demonstrate everything she's talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Classical, CCM, everything. She
Yeah.
can just do it.
Yeah. Oh, the thing I haven't mentioned. So, there's a YouTube video you should just watch. I should just forward it. She tells a little about her background and where she came from. I don't think she actually even has a college degree. I think she has said that. It's not like private information. And she's just been studying. She's been singing professionally since she was 7 years old or something, and then did do a bunch of voice lessons. She lived in New York and studied, and then had some problems with her voice because she went to a teacher who wanted her to sing too big, and her father, I think, said, "What has happened to your voice? What's happened to my genie?" And she was like, "Okay, something's not right in there," and she went and figured out how to fix it. And then she ended up having herself scoped and checked out and talking to all the voice scientists, and still does, the big ones, Ingo Tietze and Sundberg and all those people. So it's very legitimate as far as voice science. So the thing I was going to say, so voice scientists from the Cleveland Clinic come, and she always has a Broadway music director come. I've gotten to sing for them, which is amazing. So there are the Jeannie LaVetri 10 commandments of voice teaching. First, do no harm. Accept what the student brings you in every moment. Freedom first, last, and always, which facilitates the fourth. Healthy is more likely to come from free. 5, find and develop both registers and work on alignment and posture to facilitate breathing. Oh, another thing she would say is that if you have a teacher who only focuses on breathing, they probably don't know much. Because breathing is, you can teach, breathing is not easy, but it's not everything. So if everyone could master breathing, then everybody would sing like Pavarotti or Barbra Streisand. Make sure it's possible to pronounce consonants clearly and clarify vowels over time. Integrate strength exercises with semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. Find repertoire that serves the student's technical abilities, and do not assign hard songs. Assign songs that are within the student's abilities. And strive for overall growth rather than a big improvement in just one area, and have patience with the process. Remain grateful, open, and willing to learn every day. How about more things to tell you? Helpful reminders. Ask, don't tell. 2, state what you observe, don't add any causation. 3, never tell the student you are doing or not doing in a judgmental way. 4, be precise in your language, use words carefully. 5, counter unproductive behavioral response in the mechanism with an opposite exercise. 6, go slowly. 7, be gentle before you are vigorous. 8, wait for the exercises to have an effect. 9, promote awareness by asking questions. 10, zigzag when there is more than one issue to address. 11, return to the original behavior and see if it is different. And 12, acknowledge all changes, no matter how small. Okay, the final things. So these are the books which you are welcome to look at. And she has this thing that's, I think it's in level 2, it's the big thing in level 2, is the solution sequence. So it's a very thought out thing. Like if someone has limited range, shows the location of that issue probably comes from the vocal tract, the pharynx, the tongue, external, it says externals, I'm not sure what that means, or a breathing issue. In all vowels, work with all vowels at a moderate volume, gradually getting louder. Go whatever is just past the comfort zone, gradual work at extreme ends of pitch range. Tone quality as clear as possible without forcing. All areas need to be involved in the body. So it's a chart. I actually don't use it much. It's kind of, it just kind of works in my brain. So that's all. You can all look, I'll just pass these if you want to look. And that's all I have to say, I think. And
All right. Were you working on trying to bring LaVetri here?
I would love to bring, she would come, and I would love for her to come. If there were a greater community of people who have already done her program, she could come for that. But she is also wanting to come to cities to do her level 1 training.
Which would give me 3 days.
think so.
Do you know how many
I
people
guess-
would make it like worth their while?
And then we could all put our brains together and try to like.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's
10 people
possible.
to make it worth their while, or like 40 people to make it worth
Like,
their while?
I'm sure there's plenty of you who teach.
Yeah, I teach.
Yeah, I think I would suspect like 10 to 20. And they were supposed to send me information about it, but they haven't yet. But I can.
Well, you will let us know.
Yeah, I can bug the guy about it who's doing that.
Yeah, 'cause
I wanna know what the quirks
Yeah, I would love that.
Like, oh, corks. Oh
I
yeah.
wanna know what the quirks.
Oh yeah, the
So-
quarks.
So they're
Oh, they're little corks.
yeah.
Oh,
I was concerned.
So
The
they're-
wine bottle.
Yeah,
These-
with a wine bottle with still some wine on it.
Wait. You can use those. Wait, they're
It's hard to get that cork.
That's right. Drink a whole bottle.
so if a student either opens their mouth too much or too little, you can do like ah, or if they open their mouth too much, ah, kind of to prove that you don't have to open your mouth so hugely. And these little bitty ones go under the tongue, and this is where she had me singing really high.
Two under the
Yeah, two under the
Are
tongue.
they like flat or are they vertical?
Flat with like
Okay, wait,
yeah.
further.
Mm-hmm. So you know, like
CD flat.
my voice is. It's. I don't think it'll work today. That's good enough for today.
Is it
But I-
uncomfortable?
Hmm?
Do you have more of the tiny ones?
Yeah.
Can you order those online?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. There. So it's.
Swag for the book one.
Yes.
Widget.com is the website that sells all sizes of cords.
Okay.
Yeah. Did,
Probably also just go to a craft store.
Oh.
which like
Either. I just wanna try it. I'm so curious.
under the tongue?
Would,
you mean?
would
Yeah.
you
I
make
wanna try
would
one
you
on
make
it.
her do something with her fabulous coloratura?
Sure. Well, I was gonna ask if we had time, I would have a guinea pig so I could. So, here, you can just stick them out.
So like,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
so?
You want to use her as your guinea pig?
Sure.
Cat, you don't mind?
Like
Yeah, that's fine.
this.
Should be a volunteer.
But let's do. I mean, you don't care about time.
No,
Okay.
This way?
we're small
Yeah.
and mighty.
But we'll do something else first.
Okay.
Just
Sorry, I'll just. Okay, keep moving.
just so I can demonstrate something else.
Oh.
So this is. I mean, if we can just,
Anxiety. Okay.
like, I'll just show what at the beginning of the voice lesson is. This is just me, really, like what I've developed myself after low entry. So I always start with lip trills, but we don't have to do that.
Okay.
So it's just like. There's two times.
Sorry.
Not too fast.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, ready, go. Okay.
I don't like you.
So here's what'd you say?
I don't like you.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, but it needs to become your friend.
Yeah.
So what? On a scale of 1 to 10, how loud is that?
Like 4 or 3.
Okay.
There's no
let's-
wrong answer.
So try a 1,
Oh
because we're looking for just pure head voice, which I didn't tell you. But we are. Yeah, nice. Good.
Sorry.
It's fine. Can you try it more
Yeah.
puckery?
Okay.
You need to be nervous. the corpse. So this is
Okay.
the other way to
Sorry,
use
I lost
straws. Yeah. So this is the very mixy thing. It goes this way. So you go. So it has to be smiley, and you have to hold it with your hands so that your tongue is not gripping it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And your tongue goes on your lip. Smiley. Smiley. And you say ah. Ah. Yeah. So it's kind of at a moderate volume. Go. Keep smiling. So it's wide. It's not tall. So you can.
That's cool, sorry. Okay.
So you can close your jaw a little bit. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Good. Nice. Yeah. Keep it. I know it's crazy. Good. Yeah. Smiley. Eye. Nice. Okay, good. So did you?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you were doing that, this is how you mix the registers, right? Because
Yeah,
like
that was
really that was
definitely
my
in between.
overarching question of this whole thing is like I know how to use chest and know how to use head, but I don't, like I'm constantly sort of playing around trying to figure out how I can like blend and mix. And so my question was like when you did that exercise, were you starting from like a chest voice and doing that, or were you starting from a head voice, or like?
You're asking her or me?
I think first her
Yeah, I
and
think-
then you.
yeah.
For me, it feels like I kind of start in head because I'm not actively trying to belt it.
Right.
Because I really have to try to belt something if I'm going to belt it. So it does feel like it starts there, but it feels very much like I'm about to sing Heart, which I do in karaoke. So, so that's what it feels like to me.
I, for one, would love to hear you sing hard.
So, yeah.
Karaoke trip.
So I mean, that's a mix, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, that's mixed.
And
Especially at the start like that.
It
And the-
sounded great. I thought
Yeah.
it was a really nice sound.
yeah, me too. So that's that is like the major thing used for blending the registers into a mix. And the word belt, as is defined in this, is singing loudly above the break. So
Oh.
yeah, and it's used sparingly. Like there aren't many. It's like if you're screaming at someone in a song. Most of the time, you're just mixing in pretty much any
Because of
song.
that.
You're not belting
I
in
don't
that
know
definition.
if this is helpful, but I read something that I want to put like on a T-shirt recently, and it's that belt isn't a registration; it's a quality.
Yeah.
So like you can sing and mix, and you can either be in a classical space, which is an inverted megaphone, so it's small in the front and big in the back, or you can sing and mix and have it be a megaphone, which is more like belting. And it's just it's that quality, even though you're in a mix, or even in a head voice, if that's helpful at all.
Yeah, that's great. So I also use this to if with a breathy girl. And it helps that way. And someone who has the tongue that pulls way back, like gets it way out. It's super useful. So we can do this
Yes.
just in the interest of time. So those go back.
Skinny under fed in.
I put the skinny in. Maybe just yeah. Good. Kind of a brighter. Nice. This is an
Yeah,
actual
no,
lesson.
I
I
feel
would
my
want to
jaw.
work on that.
Yeah, I feel my jaw.
Good. So first of all, I don't think you have a tongue issue, so
No,
you're probably not going to notice much.
It's mainly once it gets up like to the color Tura.
Oh, you feel like you do have a tongue?
Like,
Thing
well,
there?
mostly when it's around like B flat, B, C.
This one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to go there?
On off, not on me.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Just
How
like
about E? How about E?
Yeah, that's fine.
Something.
like octaves or
Kind of an arpeggio, just whatever vowel feels good.
legato or staccato.
Legato.
Okay. I'll try.
Or do you like staccato?
So, is this a pin?
To
This
get
is
there?
pin.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Is
So,
that different for you?
that felt better because
Good,
I think
okay.
because it was like I don't know, I definitely felt it, but if it's something that's being held out on like those B's and that, especially the B flat and the B, those are
Mhm.
always evil to hold. So.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't know what's a good one, but I usually do octaves, and yeah, and but just to like, the lovely crescendo on that without sounding like you're dying.
Oh Lord, yeah, that's hard.
Always that.
Yeah.
But
Good,
I
we-
thought it was my tongue. Maybe it's more my jaw.
So what
That's
do
my
the corks
impression.
actually do?
The cork for me at least once it's really up there, it feels like it's just blah, like because
Yeah.
I can't do anything else but let it relax.
And the tongue is a little up and over, so in that more released
Yeah,
forward way.
feels great.
Do you gonna walk around like that all the time?
Hey guys. How's it going? So thank you. I want to take
Oh
it.
sure.
Ah.
Okay.